That's a man who is sought after beyond the borders of Africa. And I've had the opportunity of sitting in international programs with him and recognize how much we have that we don't value right here in our country. He heads the Independent National Media Commission, established under the Constitution of Ghana to ensure free, responsible, and pluralistic media. In this role, he leads efforts to set and monitor media professional standards and coordinate processes for the recruitment and appointment of chief executives and governing boards of the state-owned media in order to insulate them from governmental control. George additionally manages the Commission's complaints and settlement process. And I meet him often at that place because of Joy FM. Trained as a lawyer and a journalist, Mr. Sarpong's expertise spans the broad fields of communications law, policy and regulation, development statistics, peace building, and he has something to tell journalists about how to deflect the vitriol. Peace building and governance legislative drafting. He is a Reagan Fellow of the National Endowment for Democracy. Hello, George. Please, let's hear you in the next 10, 15 minutes. And in fact, we have reserved a lot of questions for you.
Thank you very much, and I hope you will keep your questions because you're a better expert on most of the issues. Good morning to you, MFA, Nana Jana Penton, and all the brilliant people that have had the opportunity of listening to. But please permit me to, it's been a difficult morning because I've just been informed that our coordinator in the northern region, Omar Mukhtar, who coordinates our peace building effort, has just died this morning.
Oh, no.
So, please permit me
Omar
a
Mukhtar.
second to commiserate to the family, and we hope that the Lord accepts his soul.
Amen.
To begin with, Samson, I think I would want to start from important remarks that Professor Gadepo and Sheikh Harim made about their observations about GBC and the improvements they are seeing. Why is this necessary? This is the outcome of the silent hand of policy. The things that you don't see but lead to transformation. And within the process of this election, we are going to see the same things happen at the Ghana News Agency, the New Times Corporation, and the Graphic Communications Group. These initiatives are what we sought to achieve in the generality of the media through LI 2224, Content Standards in Electronic Communications, that Nana Jana Penton has just spoken about. So for us at the National Media Commission, when we look at what is going on, we agree that there's reason for concern, but we think there's no reason for panic. Because this is part of the natural evolution of the media systems. And that is why almost a decade ago, we brought in the interventions that we strongly believed would have improved the environment. We are still committed to those processes, and we are going to do a lot of them this year. Permit me once again to pay tribute to the Ministry of Finance that this year is supporting us actively to do this. Special thanks to Ms. Eva Ment, the Chief Director, and the Director of Budget, Mr. Freku, and the leadership of the ministry that have shown so much commitment to supporting us to bring these issues back on the burner and to address them. We believe the media has done very well. We are aware of the threats. We do not feel overwhelmed by them because we know they are part of the natural evolution of the media, and all of us need to just keep our pulse down to address them. So exactly where are we? If you recall, when we passed LI 2224, we were the first in the world to have acknowledged the problems that everybody is talking about in the field of disinformation, in the field of ownership, in the field of media capture and all. So it was 6 months after the Supreme Court of Ghana struck down our law that Germany passed the first network enforcement law, which was based on the same principle of intermediary liability that was the foundation of our law. From the German law emerged the EU-wide legislation on the Digital Services Act and the Digital Marketing Act, which is now almost becoming the global standard. And he just spoke about the UNESCO processes. Anybody who followed the UNESCO Internet for Trust meeting, which is perhaps the biggest meeting within the multilateral forum, and they asked you to imply, I'm very active in the UNESCO processes, currently sitting on the bureau of the IPDC, which is the International Program for the Development of Communications, and perhaps almost all the major UN groups that work on these issues. So we understand what the situation is, and we do not feel overwhelmed. As we speak now, what are the big problems? Nana, Audrey, almost everybody has explained it. First, we've talked about media capture, we've talked about the political manipulations, we've talked about all those issues. What is the foundation of that? The foundation of that is that by policy, when we speak of media freedom, there are two elements that we need to address. Freedom from what and freedom for what? In the case of Ghana, we seem to have adequately addressed the question of freedom from what? What was left was for freedom for what? So those who obtained media channels, what had happened? We had used that freedom to protect the interests of media owners. We have used that to protect the interests of political actors. And even those media that are not influenced by political ownership, Nana has pointed out, there are two areas where people are using the media to protect their businesses. But there are also people who are using media for self-protection against the state. Okay, how do you address all these issues? You address these issues by understanding what is the next nature of the threat. What is going to happen within the next couple of years is that having captured the media, the key media institutions within the ecosystems will become the next target. Trust me, and mark it on the wall. The Ghana Journalists Association, by the next couple of years, will be taken over by the same interest groups, either through influencing their elections in order to secure candidates that they want. You are going to see business interests influencing GJ elections. You are going to see political interest groups influencing GJ elections. If you took the Ghana Independent Broadcasters Association, because it is owned by the same media owners that you are expressing concerns about, then essentially you can see its alignment, because the ownership is not different from the problem that you are discussing. The other forms of media associations within the ecosystem are going to be subject to the same threats. And ultimately, if we don't protect the space, the Independent National Media Commission, that for now has representation from all constituent bodies, will be the last line of assault for capture. If that happens, that is the state at which one would say the danger has materialized. For now, for as long as the independence of the commission is sustained, there is hope to address the threats that we see. And as we have indicated, within the next couple of weeks, we are going to outline some major engagements. One of them is going to be a major national conference on disinformation, where we would outline the current issues in disinformation. A lot of the things that we've talked about now essentially belong to what we call disinformation 1.0. As we move into disinformation 3.0, the challenges are completely different. And Annie just illustrated some of them to us. Before then, I think Professor Gadeko, Nana, and the rest are done. As more and more innovation moves into the networks, the challenge that we are confronted with is going to be channel-based. And that is where the complexity of the matter is moving. This is precisely the reason why in Europe and North America, the challenges and the interventions proposed are seeking to deal with network opacity issues. So if you saw the hearings in Congress in the US about the role of the big platforms, if you followed the US Supreme Court cases of Google and the rest, the two seminal cases that the Supreme Court just decided, they are all addressing this bigger problem that in the case of Africa hasn't come up for discussions at all, but which is the biggest threat that we face in the next coming election because of the international malign actors. What our conclusion? Our conclusion, as I have already said, is that these issues are questions for concern, but they provide no reason for panic. All of us are going to work together to address them. And I'm particularly glad that you have boldly opened the discussion through your forum. It is my hope that all of us are going to keep our commitment and keep discussing the issues. Within the next couple of weeks, it seems to me that some clarity is going to emerge on the policy front, which will show the pathways towards addressing all the concerns that the brilliant panelists have expressed. Thank you very much, Sams. And
thank you. Thank you very much indeed, George. And our very first question to you will be looking at a very practical issue where the media stands accused of dealing in publication that heightens tensions ahead of the elections. And these are high-stakes elections. That former President Mahama meets a group of people and tells them that the EC is recruiting returning officers, and that the EC is doing so by seeking the support of ministers and DCEs to bring them people, party apparatchiks, to be recruited as returning officers. The media reports without a search about the fact that this was publicly advertised and that this is almost unthinkable that the EC will be able to do anything like that. How do you stem the tide ahead of the elections?
It is about the standards that Nana just spoke about. It is about the fact-checking that Annie just spoke about. It is about the ethics and responsibility that Audrey spoke about. It is about the moral commitment that the media make to the elections that Sheikh talked about. It is about the public mobilization that Bishop talked about. It is all the ideas that we have shared here, Samson. In short, it is just a simple commitment to professionalism. And professionalism is enforced by regulatory rules. That is where the weakness has been. Nana has spoken about it. Two things are going to happen. Number one is that we are going to support the independent professional journalists who are doing work like yourselves and your media house, teams like City Group, GBC that everybody has commended now. But all of us also need to reach consensus about what to do with the errant fringe that is committed to throwing the society into chaos. It seems to me we've gotten to that point where people will have to be made accountable for their actions.
So obviously we should not be sort of become the conveyor belt for this kind of news or commentary from the key stakeholders unless they give us evidence to show that in fact the EC is recruiting party people from the NPP to be returning officers.
But the question
That's a responsibility.
The media actually taking that responsibility and putting them to strict proof to give us the facts about the things that they say is also the key question.
Like even when you don't have the evidence, and that doesn't mean you don't report it. The point is, when you become aware that some falsehood has been put out, your responsibility is to point out that this thing that others have published is false. You see the point? So it's not just
so
that
you should publish, regardless that it will heighten tensions, regardless that it is something that you can easily rubbish and say this is not possible.
Yes, you have to. That is exactly what our role should be. So there are two things. let us say this information comes out. It is so obvious that it cannot be done. But for the purposes of post-truth that I spoke about, they amplify it, they make it look almost real, including sometimes putting it on letterheads that look genuine and all the rest of it. So our reporters must report that this false information is making the rounds, and it is false. And false because there's no evidence. But if we say that, well, we didn't put it out, and therefore it's not our issue, we are therefore contributing to the thing making the rounds and eventually taking over.
Okay, let me find out from George, though. George, if you're still with us, I'm surprised you're saying that it's not an overwhelming situation in spite of all the fears that have been expressed. Also the fact that the NMC is not actually putting the media on its toes as it ought to. Really, I'm sure you've heard it several times that the NMC is more like a toothless bulldog in this situation. And really, going into those crucial elections, we are wondering, NMC, what really will happen? What will you do differently?
Okay, thank you very much, Jennifer. But just before then, if you give me a quick minute to comment on the interaction between Samson and Nana, which I think is very important. I think our responsibility is not about whether we report or we don't report. It is about discovering the truth, as Nana has said, in the post-truth period. Our responsibility is first to examine the claim and what is behind the claim. Nana had earlier said it is not only about the event, what has gone on before and what is likely to follow. And in order to say, this person has said A, B, C, D, the facts on the ground do not sustain the claim. There is no evidence for the claim, and therefore we consider what he has said not sustainable.
Therefore, you don't publish at all?
I think that you have a responsibility to publish, but within that publication is the context of the lie that the person has said. If you have evidence that what the person has said is a lie, you understand? And it adds to the inoculation that Annie just spoke to us about. If you help people to define the inoculation procedures, what is going to happen is that over time, the credibility of the person who is persistently telling lies will be exposed to the point that anytime people hear from him or her, they know the credibility to put on whatever information is coming from them. Now, coming to the question of NMC and what my brother Gilbert Cheta calls the canine metaphor dog. Mr. Ayebofo has said that he would prefer a barking dog that doesn't bite to a silent dog that goes biting, reflecting his overall commitment to free expression. I think we are all coming to a certain balance that will require a balancing act between the right to free expression and the accountable media practice. And as we move into the elections, it seems to me that is what we are going to do. Before then, I think that you had noticed that we recently filed a notice of revocation against a radio station that, in our view, was persistently carrying hate speech and irresponsible content. We are not going to relent in these efforts. We have signaled everybody that all of us are going to have to be accountable for our actions as we go into these elections and beyond.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, George. And Anipa gave us an assignment